Alright YouTube, I'm going to do a quick video on how to service your HotBits coilovers. This is specifically for some rally coilovers off the Sentra, and I'm sure other gravel coilovers from HotBits are going to be pretty similar. So I already started by cleaning this thing up. Step one is going to be to clean this coilover body assembly. Obviously not spotless, but pretty clean. Use some old toothbrushes or some brass wire brushes, some old rags or socks, whatever. You're basically just trying to get all the debris, the loose, caked on stuff that's easy to get off of it. You want to start with a relatively clean coilover assembly. And then you're also going to want to, after you're done with that, clean up your workbench. Because although this is a pretty dirty job, you're going to need a relatively clean workspace as we get into this. You're going to want to grab one of these thread files if you don't already have one. This is a metric thread file. I picked it up at a local parts store. You can get them on Amazon or whatever, but it's got different thread patterns for cleaning up threads on nuts and bolts, fasteners, or as I've found out on the body of these coilovers is a 0.75. You can clean up your threads with this. Why you'd need to do that is because if you're like me and you haven't run or haven't purchased a shock cover yet, you're going to get little rocks and things pelting your coilover assembly, knocking the paint off your springs and putting dings in your strut body. You can avoid all that if you just buy some shock covers. They're not that expensive. It's on my list of things to purchase. But anyway, there were a couple spots on here where I needed to clean up the threads, and that's where these come in super handy. You don't need to worry too much about taking these parts off unless you're going to do a really thorough cleaning, which, like I said, I already cleaned most of this up already before I decided I was going to get into this thing. But yeah, you'll see as we get to that point. So first things first, after your strut assembly or your coilover assembly is mostly clean and your workspace is cleaned up, you're going to need to knock off this adjustment knob. And on mine, the set screw is missing, so I probably almost lost this. Need to get a new set screw or a new adjustment knob or whatever. So you take that off the end, and then you got a 19mm nut here. You can zip it off with an impact, or if it's not super tight, like mine isn't, you can knock it off with the impact, or sorry, the regular socket wrench. Set that aside. You won't need that again until you put it back together. And then you need to remove this bottom threaded cap. I don't know what else to call it. I'm sure there's a special tool that you can either get or comes with these for getting this off, because the spanner, I believe this is the spanner that came with the HotBits, doesn't quite fit this application. So right now I'm unthreading this. As you can see, it's turning the whole inside of the strut while I'm doing this, which is fine. It's not a big deal. When we put it back together, you'll see, I'll show you an easier way to do this so you're not having to also fight the resistance inside the shock. Alright, it sounds like I'm at the end, but it doesn't want to come off. There we go. So you can see all the dirt down here. There's not even that many miles on these since they were last serviced. So grab a rag or an old sock or whatever and just clean that dirt off. You can see these little holes. So allow the pressure inside the mount to dissipate or to bleed off or whatever. Set that aside. And then you've got a bump stop in there. Alright. Pull that bump stop out. See all that dirt? Junk. So set that aside. Now, I don't know if you can see in there. See, there's like three little holes in there. That is actually the cap to the shock body. And there is an appropriate tool for that. This is not the appropriate tool, but Ryan at Thompson Racing Fabrication made this because I had him service these a while ago when I had the SER at his shop, and he couldn't get the tool, so he just made this one. And what this does is this loosens, this unscrews the cap on that strut. I may need to set this on the ground. Oops. Let me just smash that remote reservoir on the concrete. I'm sure that's good for it. So you got to get these three little screws to line up on the top of the strut. And of course, the whole thing wants to spin. So I will load this up and hopefully it'll put enough pressure on there that it won't want to turn the whole thing. But I don't think that's going to happen. Alright, so I got this pulled apart because the retaining nut is off, so the end of the strut is no longer attached to the mount. So you can pull this back, and I got a good grip on the strut and was able to start loosening the top. Now you're going to want to do the rest of this with the strut upside down. Invert your inverted shock. You'll see why in a minute here. And just lift slightly on the mount while you loosen that cap inside. Switch hands when you get tired. If you didn't have carpal tunnel before, you'll probably get it after this. That's interesting. That's not what happened with the last one. Okay. I see this now. gonna have to take the other one apart and look at that a little more closely. So now you can take the springs off in the mid spring, and here is your strut. This looks more like the strut you're used to seeing if you're just new to rally. Boy, that's weird. There's that retainer. So that threads into the top. What happened on the other one was this whole top got unthreaded, which makes me wonder if... No, because that was on the other one. I don't know. I'll have to go back into the other one and see what's going on. I don't think it was supposed to come apart that way before. So anyway, you're going to want to clean that up, clean this up, get all the old grease and dirt off of that. Set that down, clean this one off. So this is the retainer that actually keeps the strut in the mount. You can see how this has a lip on it. If you put this back on and screw it back on there, see that the diameter of that is the same as this. There's actually a lip inside of here. You can see it down there maybe. It's actually a bearing. There's a bearing inside that rests on the end here, and that bearing rides right here. Keeps it all together. So the next thing you need to do is clean this out, because this is basically what supports the body of the strut and gives it all of its strength. This end here is through the bottom and gives it the compression. The damping force acts inside of this tube, and all of the lateral forces are absorbed with this mount and the strut body. So this is what an inverted motorsport strut is and how it works. So we'll take some rags, in my case a sock, and the special tool that we just used to unscrew that. We'll just ream it through here. You hear all that gritty, greasy, there's your bearing. All that nasty, dirty stuff in there. And then you just want to keep doing this until it comes out clean. Not unlike cleaning your firearms. You just keep running it through until it comes out clean. That's pretty good. Let's clean this up real quick. Just using a soft metal wire brush and trying to get all the debris out. Look for spots that are nicked up. I thought I saw a couple of them. Here's a spot here, so we'll just take that thread file on the 0.75, knock those burrs off, and just hit it with the brush a little bit. And then if you see some little spots in there that maybe just holding on a little bit, you can knock them off with a little metal pick too. There's a spot that's kind of flat, and I don't know if the thread file will get that or not. Now I don't know if this thread profile on the mount is exactly the same as the profile on this thread file, but doing this is not going to make it worse. It can only help. I'm sure it might take some of the profile off of the thread. Like if this is a rounded, and maybe that's angled or something. Like the actual, at the edge of the thread might be a little different, but as far as like the spacing on these threads, it's the same. So if these are galled up bad enough, making some slight adjustments to the edge of the thread is not really gonna do that much harm, considering how much harm it'll do when the threads are all smushed together from getting hit by rocks and stuff. So anyway, that looks pretty good. Now let's clean the inside of this up a little bit more. Uh-oh. I have to go grab some more paper towel. So I'll just leave this dirty sock on there and throw the paper towel over top of it. Go ahead and give it a twist while you're pushing it through. And then keep twisting while you pull it out. Yeah, see, it's pretty dirty still. See down there, still some dirt towards the bottom. You can even run your wire brush in there a little bit. But yeah, I don't think some of that stuff is just dirt that's going to come out easily. I think some of that might be some corrosion or some wear in there. Alright, we got some more paper towels, another raggedy old sock. So I'm using socks for cleaning. I like to turn them inside out. You can see they got a lot more texture, more surface area. And just throw this on your fancy disassembly tool or whatever, a wrench, a rod, something. Whatever you can get that'll reach all the way through the mount. It's basically what you want. Yeah, so that's coming out pretty clean now. We'll do one more paper towel wipe. Yeah, it's pretty clean. I mean, it's not perfect. If you want to be super anal about it, you just keep going until your paper towel or your rag or whatever comes out spotless. But this isn't a firearm, and it's just going to get full of dirt again anyway. So you don't need to be super anal about it, really. Just get most of the big stuff out. And I mean, a lot of this could be coming out at the ends too. Like I said, we cleaned this end out really well, but I didn't get this end. Alright, so I'm going to call that good enough. Set that aside. Grab yourself another paper towel. Clean up this bearing. I suspect this is a piece that can be replaced. Maybe not. But it doesn't look to be particularly fancy or highly specialized. It's just a little split round bearing. But it isn't showing a ton of signs of wear. I'm sure it's fine. Okay, so the mount is clean, bearing's clean. wipe down your strut, make sure this is clean. Strut body. Strut rod. Go ahead and inspect your threads up here for that lock nut. Clean up your adjuster knob. Alright, and now you're pretty much ready to lubricate and reassemble. So we'll take the retainer back off.